Welcome back to this episode of Metal Gear Mondays. Earlier today you saw me get into a tank battle in Metal Gear Solid. If you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and check the playlist. And right now I'm going to do something a little different. Just the other day, WhatCulture Gaming had put out a video called 20 Mind-Blowing Things You Didn't Know About Metal Gear Solid 2. I like to think I'm pretty well read on this. Like any other Metal Gear fanboy, I like to read about the little Easter eggs and things like that. But I thought I would give this a watch and do a reaction just to see if there's anything new I learned. Now bear in mind, there's probably going to be a lot of pausing and chatting, so if you just want to watch this video uninterrupted, I would recommend you click the link in the description first to get to see the original video. But let's skip all the preamble and let's get to it.
Get ready to feel old. Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty just turned 20.
Oh shit.
Kojima's sequel to his massively successful, hugely innovative 1998 stealth action masterpiece was one of the most anticipated games of the era. Though the writer-director has been all too keen to discuss his process and how the game finally got into our hands. From mind-blowing metrics to cut characters, and some frankly insane decisions by Kojima, and so much you may not still be aware of 20 years later. And with that being said, I'm Ben Roy from WhatCulture.com, and this is 20 mind-blowing things you didn't know about Metal Gear Solid 2, The Sons of Liberty. Number 20. The script was over 800 pages long.
Oh shit.
Now, it's no secret that basically every game in the Metal Gear Solid franchise has an absolutely colossal script, given that Kojima's characters like to go on a bit and explain every aspect of what they're doing. Incredibly though, the second game expanded the scope tenfold, it felt like, and resulted in a whopping 800-page script. Just to put this in perspective, that's around 7 times longer than the average Hollywood movie script, so you could easily picture Kojima using a briefcase to carry this thing around. Number 19. Kojima went to extreme lengths to hide the ride and twist. Considering how basically every major video game is spoiled by leaks these days, it's fascinating to see such a large aspect of a video game not be spoiled, with the ride and twist being, well, unspoiled until launch. Kojima is admittedly an uncommonly cagey storyteller, and went to all-time extreme lengths to hide this twist by swapping out Snake in game trailers and then putting him in the big shell sequences, giving us all the impression that we were going to play Snake in this game. And then beyond that, critics who reviewed this game were under such strict embargoes they couldn't give anything away. So when players got their hands on this one, they had no idea what was coming. Number 18.
Yeah, I remember when I first played Metal Gear Solid 2. I had never played Metal Gear Solid 1, but you can immediately tell just how cool Snake was, especially to a kid who was 14 at the time. And I was extremely just crushed at Raiden and how lame I thought he was, although time has been very kind to this game. It has aged very well, especially with some of the dialogue toward the end. Kind of predicted the future in an odd way. I don't know if that'll be touched on here, but in the future I may do a video on that, or if I can find a good one, I'll react to it. But yeah, let's move on.
A Mantis mask mechanic was scrapped during development. Kojima's games are always packed with wonderful, creative, out-of-the-box ideas and mechanics, and one that was infuriatingly cut from Metal Gear Solid 2 was the inclusion of a Mantis mask. What would have been a nice callback to the telepathic boss from Metal Gear Solid 1, the mask would have let the player read the minds of anyone in the room.
I did not know that.
Would have been a highly eccentric and hilarious outcome for sure. I mean, this is the franchise where we have guards crap themselves, for God's sake. The original plan for this would be to unlock it during the second playthrough, and players could use this to learn the identity of Pliskin before the big reveal. Sadly, it's never been publicly stated why this didn't make it into the game, though it probably just didn't make it in because it was too complex. The Mantis mask is such an ingenious idea, and it's such a shame we never got it in another Metal Gear game. Number 17. Kojima originally wanted to call it Metal Gear Solid 3. In what might be one of the most Hideo Kojima decisions ever, he originally wanted to call the sequel to Metal Gear Solid 3, as a reference to the skyscrapers in the New York skyline, and to also screw with the fans are expecting Metal Gear Solid 2. Unsurprisingly, Kojima's suggestion was met with resistance, and so it was ditched for a more familiar title, and one that was less confusing.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of mad they didn't do that. Let Kojima be Kojima, that's how he makes his money.
Number 16. It cost just $10 million to make. Considering its high degree of polish and massive ambitions, it's extremely impressive that Metal Gear Solid 2 only cost $10 million. For comparison's sake, Final Fantasy IX cost a whopping $40 million the year prior, and 2015's Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain was an $80 million production. To deliver a game that well aged and masterfully engineered on a modest Hollywood horror budget is frankly staggering. Needless to say, this investment from Konami paid off. Number 15. The Tanker chapter had a different ending. The game's Tanker prologue ends with Ocelot stealing Metal Gear Gear Ray, and the tank is sinking, at which point Solid Snake is presumed dead by the outside world. But originally the level didn't end with a lengthy cutscene, but instead Snake trying to escape the tanker. The set piece reportedly had Snake running through the tanker while taking on guards, racing against the clock as water began to rush in. Those snippets of the sequence were used in cutscene flashbacks later on, and clips are also included in early trailers. Kojima allegedly scrapped this because it wasn't deemed fun enough. It's a damn shame because that sure sounded like a blast. Number
That sounds like something I would want. I kind of wish it would have included it, but due to the game mechanics and how it's played, that could have proved tough if it was like a time crunch type of thing. But yeah, I wish it would have been in there.
14. The game changed significantly due to 9/11. Countless movies, TV shows, and video games changed a lot due to 9/11, and some were even cancelled. And with Metal Gear Solid 2 just 2 months away, Kojima and his team had to work fast to reconfigure aspects of the game. The New York finale was originally more elaborate and had Metal Gear Ray crashing into Manhattan. Elsewhere, American flags were removed from the final boss battle against Solidus, and Raiden's name spelling was even changed in Japan, from katakana to kanji characters because of the former being very similar to Bin Laden. All in all, it's impressive that these changes were made in such little time, especially before the game went gold. This was before the era of day one patches after all. Number 13. The E3 reveal is widely credited for the PS2's success. Though it's no secret that this first gameplay demo blew people away, you might not appreciate just how widespread this truly was. The game's extremely high graphic fidelity and gameplay mechanics offered us such a strong advertisement for the PS2, which had already released in Japan but hadn't hit stores elsewhere just yet. And out of the gate, the PS2 sold like hotcakes and sustained this for the entire generation. It left the Xbox, GameCube, and Dreamcast in the dust, and many credit this to, well, Metal Gear Solid 2. Number 12. Vamp was originally supposed to be a woman. Though it's different to see Vamp in any other way, his character went through a lot of changes in pre-production, with
Super quick note, for those of you who don't know, Vamp is voiced by Phil Lamar, who is the UPS truck driver guy from Mad TV. So just picture that in your head.
Kojima originally envisioning him as a woman, but once Kojima came up with the character of Fortune, he felt the duo made more sense if they were both different genders, and so Vamp was made a man instead. And now it's hard imagining Vamp in pretty much any other light. Number 11. It almost had a cel-shaded art style. It's basically impossible to imagine Metal Gear Solid 2 looking any differently to it does now. But early in the game's development, Kojima toyed with a cel-shaded look. Konami have released a few clips over the years featuring Snake and Mei Lin looking cel-shaded, but that wasn't really the look that fit this game. And it's safe to say that Kojima was probably smart to stay the course. Though we did end up releasing a Metal Gear spin-off with a cel-shaded look years later, the PSP game Metal Gear Acid 2. Given the historically diverse nature of cel shading, especially with franchises that didn't start out that way, and given how basically timeless Metal Gear Solid 2's final art style was, everyone here made the right choice. Number 10. The game passes commentary on Japanese censorship. Though much of Metal Gear Solid 2 feels massively ahead of its time, as it tackled complex issues, it also took sly aims at aspects of Japanese society, which you probably missed. In the year 2000, when Kojima was working on the game, the Japanese government approved textbooks which downplayed Japan's role in World War II. This has been a major issue in Japan's society ever since then. And then when these textbooks were put out there in 2000, Kojima felt he had to comment upon this in his new game. And so he did in the final cutscene. We need to pass the torch and let our children read our sad, messy history by its light. We have all the magic of a digital age to do this with. And ultimately, these textbooks were eventually scrapped in almost all of the school districts. Number 9. Jack and Rose's dialogue was inspired by Kojima's own marriage. Hideo Kojima sure does love movies, so it's no secret.
Bro, if the dialogue between Jack and Rose is based on your own marriage, you need to fucking run.
That Raiden / Jack and his partner Rose are inspired by James Cameron's Titanic, yet the actual beat-to-beat dialogue is informed by something else entirely.
I never made the Titanic connection.
Kojima's relationship with his wife. According to Kojima, when Rose asks Jack what day it is, and he forgets the anniversary of their first meeting, it's intended to mirror Kojima's own forgetfulness while dating his wife.
Oh, bro.
He similarly asked the same question to prompt his own memory. This is one strange but yet sweet tribute. Number 8. 2 planned bosses were cut from the game. The game originally featured 2 more bosses against Dead Cell, the questionable moniker of Chinaman and Old Boy, who are actually mentioned in the final game. The former was apparently modelled after Jet Li, and would have been a martial artist with the ability to walk on water and walls. His boss fight was set to take place in the same chamber that you fought Vamp for the first time. As for Old Boy, he was meant to be a mutant World War veteran who was over 100 years of age and was a mentor to Big Boss. His fight would have involved sending in a fleet of paratroopers to fight Raiden, but ultimately the Old Boy concept was scrapped for the end in Metal Gear Solid 3. Number 7. Raiden was created to make the game more appealing to women. The game's big protagonist switcheroo rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but beyond Kojima wanting to troll his fan base by swapping out Snake for Raiden, he also did it for a more earnest reason. Kojima claims that he created Raiden after hearing female debuggers who worked on the original Metal Gear Solid noting that it didn't do much for them, and so his solution was to give them a more accessible hero. And comparing Raiden to Solid Snake, it was meant to be a bit less standoffish.
Bear in mind, development of Metal Gear Solid 2, I believe, started in 1999. The boy band boom was hot, which is why Raiden looks like a super badass version of Nick Carter. Moving on.
Despite the obvious controversies over Raiden, it didn't hurt the game's sales in any way. Number 6. Pliskin originally had blonde hair. Supporting character Pliskin is eventually revealed to be a lot more important, and none other than Solid Snake in disguise. And obviously, Kojima didn't make much of an effort to conceal this, and as players we all pretty much knew who it was from the get-go. However, Kojima's original plan was to give Pliskin blonde hair, so it would leave players more unsure if it was Solid Snake or maybe even Liquid. But Kojima decided to drop this one as the look was a bit too distracting. While it would have been another layer of mystery and tension in the game, Metal Gear Solid 2 was also juggling too much else at the time, so it was deemed a bit unnecessary. Number 5. It predicted fake news and other modern phenomenon. It's wild to go back to Metal Gear Solid 2 now and just see how much it was predicting back then. Sure, a lot of these things aren't one-to-one, but it seemed to get some social trends right, and upon release this game was considered to be a bit out there. But in recent years it's been strangely precise with some aspects of life. What with the intrusive nature of technology in our lives, and the very notion of fake news. During Raiden's late game chat with the Colonel, it's so strange how he was so accurate about misinformation in the internet age, or algorithms exploiting the human nature, whether it be for hate or for joy. Now this isn't to say that Kojima's an oracle, but sometimes this was a bit on the nose. So bravo for predicting how twisted our future would really be. Number 4. A multiplayer mode was scrapped. Though more recent Metal Gear games have featured an online multiplayer mode, Kojima originally planned for Metal Gear Solid 2 to feature a local 2-player versus mode, achieved for either split screen or console-to-console system link. The modes would have had straight-up battles between 2 players or a stealthy hide-and-seek mode, though unfortunately this was eventually just scrapped. But hide-and-seek multiplayer rather than deathmatch in Metal Gear would be kind of fun. Number 3.
It was originally about Solid hunting Liquid in the Middle East.
Though the final game is set in New York, Kojima originally intended to sell it in the Middle East, with Liquid somehow surviving the events of the first game. Liquid would again commandeer some more nukes and prepare to launch them with a new Metal Gear, but roughly 6 months into development, the plan was dropped, what with tensions growing in the Middle East. Kojima would rework some of these ideas for the tanker prologue instead, whilst totally reconfiguring the big shell portion of the game. Kojima of course finally went to the Middle East with a 4th game, though presumably for political reasons they don't say where it is. But then Metal Gear Solid 5 however takes place in Afghanistan, so he finally got there in the end. Number 2. Vamp is hidden in the ending cutscene. Despite defeating Vamp in the game, he obviously lives to fight another day, and makes a sneaky reappearance as an Easter egg in the final cutscene. After Raiden removes his dog tag, you can manipulate the camera and zoom in to find him. Kino players will spot Vamp hanging around a taxi in the background, just for a few seconds, seemingly watching Snake and Raiden having their little moment without their knowledge.
Shit, I didn't know that. I didn't know you could manipulate the camera in that last cutscene. I thought that wasn't a thing until Metal Gear Solid 3, but moving on.
Yeah, you'll even pop a trophy, Vampire. And as for Vamp, he would return years later in Metal Gear Solid 4, where you'd finally get to fight him one more time. And number 1, Raiden's journey was inspired by Pinocchio. And if you're wondering what Pinocchio has to do with a giant mech which shoots nukes, well, let me tell you. A lot of Kojima games are inspired by movies, but the bulk of Raiden's character arc is actually influenced by Pinocchio. In a recent tweet, Kojima confirms that Raiden's journey follows that of Pinocchio in a metaphorical way. And really, nobody can put it better himself. Raiden, swallowed by a huge white whale of information society, is digested through the stomach and vomited through the anus. After that, his puppet of information control cuts the strings and starts to walk on its own legs. That's MGS2. I mean, Raiden does spend a large part of the game's final act in Arsenal Gear, where many areas are named after human body parts, namely ascending the colon, Sigmund colon, and rectum. Never change, Hideo. You're an absolute madman. And that's our list. That's 20 mind-blowing things you didn't know about.
Okay, I actually did learn a few things I didn't know before. I didn't know about the Pinocchio reference. I didn't know about the original plan from Metal Gear Solid 2 being in the Middle East. So that seems pretty interesting. And this has been another episode of Metal Gear Mondays. I'll be back tomorrow with some more Pops Arcade content, and I'll see you tomorrow.